Good afternoon, good evening to all of you.
Good afternoon, good afternoon.
Yes, we'll just be starting very shortly.
Hi, Prof.
How are you?
I'm
Thank
fine.
you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good afternoon.
Oh, it's good afternoon here.
Yeah. From us here in Kuala Lumpur, it's good evening.
Oh, good evening.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's
Good afternoon from Kenya, Prof.
7:30 in the evening over here in Kuala Lumpur.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
good evening to you.
Good evening.
Prof,
and
good afternoon, Prof.
yes, good afternoon. Great to see all of you here.
Thank
Nice
you.
to
Thank you.
Good evening, Prof. Mui.
Hi,
Thank you.
good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, Prof. U. Thank you for
Hi, good evening. Here.
Good afternoon,
Good
Korbalagi.
evening.
Bye.
Good evening, Prof. Good evening for you, Prof. How are you?
From you is good afternoon. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Edward in Canada. I think it's very early morning there.
Oh, very early.
Yes, good morning.
Yes. Good morning. Good afternoon, Mr. Yunus Bhuiya from Bangladesh. Thank you for joining in. Good afternoon, Dr. BC. Thank you for joining in from Nigeria.
Afternoon. Thank you.
Hello, Prof. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and all members and
Salam. Yeah, Doctor.
Good afternoon from Nigeria, Dr. Regina.
Yes, Dr. Regina. Thank you for joining in. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency, Mr. Ichola from Republic of Benin.
Submit for you chapter 1, 2, 3 and the questionnaire. I'm just qualifying the questionnaire. I just got updated information.
Good afternoon, Prof. Dr. Goamuri from Zimbabwe. Welcome.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you? Thanks.
I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you. Hey, I really welcome you, all of you here. So we'll start as per schedules. So please welcome. We are here in the 2021 and it's time for Africa. It's actually a policy dialogue
Thank
session.
you.
It's a session that is being now organized by GARA Global. And this is a part of GARA's education program, one of this education program called GDS. It is an education series of GARA. So this is the topic that we are going to start with because we feel that a lot has to be done and it's a great potential is the African nation. And I myself have been there a couple of times, especially in Zambia. I've been there, I think already 3 times. And, you know, I have a lot of my associates staying in Zambia, in Zimbabwe. And overall, I found that the continent itself has an extreme potential and it's a high time that we say that 2021, it's time for Africa. So this particular session that we are in here today, we have got some of the think tanks from Africa. We have think tanks from Zambia, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Liberia, Nigeria, and I'm really glad that you could make your time to be here today. And this is a first step that we are going forward. And of course, based on this initiative, we'll be having another round talk in the feedback part. So with no longer delaying the part, I would just like to welcome all of you who are here at the moment. And as part of the GARA Global Academics Research Academy, I welcome you all here. It is actually, I started with a season greetings to you all. Like GARA is inspired by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 4.0, which emphasizes on the quality education for all. So GARA launched its platform to keep pace with the global vision and mission towards achieving quality research, which will be the base for delivering quality education. GARA is a non-for-profit entity. GARA's Policy Dialogue Series, EDS 2021, It's Time for Africa, is participated by 10 respected African speakers representing 10 global institutions from Kenya, Liberia, Nigeria, United Arab Emirates, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. GARA, the research wing of Wisdom Organization for Research and Leadership Development, World, is committed to unite the global researcher under one single platform. September 2019 was the founding of GARA and entrusted to me as the honorary chief advisor of this platform from World. The idea is to bring in global researchers in at a single platform and do something great in the form of legacy for the young generation of researchers and educators. In a short span of time, GARA have now global presence in 30 countries and is expanding. It really feels awesome. GARA being a global pioneer platform on web-based technology and e-conference mentoring successfully around the globe. Africa is considered to be the second largest continent in the world, with a total area of around 11 million square miles that account for 5.7% of the Earth's surface, as well as 20% of the total surface of land on our planet. There are 54 countries and over 2,000 languages spoken in this continent. A continent rich with heritage, natural resources, attractive tourism destinations, and moreover, a land of abundant opportunities and great hospitality. Through this policy dialogue, we want to bring about a lot of potential that the rich continent has to deliver for the global community. It's 2021, and it's indeed time for Africa. The success of this EDS, the education series, is ours, all including the global strategic partners. I thank all who have ensured that this global event will turn out to be a grand success. Welcome aboard to the GARA global family. So with that note, I would like to welcome you, all of you here in this program, okay? And I would like to request, first of all, Professor Dr. Christine Phiri, Mushibwe, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of the Unicaf University, Zambia, to kindly inaugurate this occasion today as the chief guest of the session. Over to you, Prof. Dr. Christine Phiri.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor, and welcome to all. This is with great honor, and I'm really grateful to be accorded this opportunity to inaugurate this session. I think, like Professor has just indicated from his speech there, I think this is an important forum, and such kind of dialogues are supposed to be recommended as much as possible. You know, it is in people coming together, great minds coming together, thinking together, will we be able to gain so much and be able to learn so much. In Zambia, we have got an adage which says that, you know, knowledge can only be attained when people come together. Because when people come together, they begin to learn from each other and great ideas begin to emerge. You know, when you are alone, you cannot do much. So we usually say that you cannot pick lice with one finger, you know, meaning that if there are two fingers, then that lice can be picked up. So the same with knowledge, the same with great ideas, the same with innovation, the same with creativity. We need to come together. And yes, it's time for Africa. Like you have indicated, Africa is a continent that is so huge and there's great potential, and yet we are still lagging behind and considered to be behind. We've got great think tanks. And some of these great think tanks have even left the continent and are serving elsewhere. But we need these great think tanks right here in Africa and be able to look at ourselves and find ways and means of how we can develop Africa and bring it to what Africa is supposed to be. So this session is really, really important. And I would like to open it up and ask that the participants should consider themselves valuable, because we know that we are going to gain so much from what is going to be presented. So we are ready, and I hope and trust that we are all ready for the presentations. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Vice Chancellor, for your extremely encouraging words. May I kindly request our first presenter today to discuss. It is going to be Professor Oscar Koye. He's actually from Kenya, but he's the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Cavendish University in Zambia. Over to you, Prof. We are eager to hear from you. And just as a, so that we can finish everything on time, we'll be allocating approximately 10 minutes maximum for the per, resource person. And then once we are done, then we'll have a very small discussion with the Malaysian chapter president, Prof. Dr. Wu, who is here, myself, and Dr. Christian Phiri. And then we'll see how are the things that come out from this. Over to you, Prof. Dr. Oscar, please.
Thank you, Prof. Karim. Thank you, Prof. Asim Karim. So thank you for having me on this forum. I would like to also thank all the other members, fellow speakers, and the entire GARA family. So it gives me a great pleasure to speak on this platform about how we can improve the state of education around the African continent. I'd like to start with a small story. I don't know if you have heard about the educationalist Sungata Mitra. He presented a TED Talk in 2014 for which he won a prize, where he described the current state of education around the world. He explained how 300 years ago, the British Empire needed to manage a big, vast empire across so many continents. And the only way they could send messages was across ships, because there was no communication equipment. So they created the first computer, the bureaucratic administrative machine. And this computer didn't run on silicon, it ran on people. And then what they did is they made another machine to produce the people. And we call that machine the school. And in this machine, they trained people to work in a very special way, to be identical, to have good handwriting, to read, to be able to do basic math in their head, so that they could move from anywhere to anywhere and you wouldn't know that they've changed. And the machine that they produced was a robust machine. And it continues to produce people even today in exactly the same way it did 300 years, even though there is no need for there's no need to supply the same bureaucratic administrative machine. So what I'm just trying to say is that today we are churning out students from schools and even to a certain extent universities in the same way we've done for the last 30 or 40 years. Whereas the entire world around us has changed, has dramatically changed, to the point that the government, which was once the biggest employer of people, can no longer guarantee a job to every educated person. And schools and universities keep on producing the same educated people, but with nowhere to go. And this is creating a lot of tension around the world, especially in Africa, where you have a population of now 1.3 billion, with as many as 60% below the age of 25 as of 2019, and with a median age of 19.8 expected this year. So there's a lot of tension because a lot of these people don't have jobs. And so there is need to transform education in Africa. We need to move away from just dumping students with information, teaching them and to teach them things that will make them have an impact for themselves, for their families, and those around them and their country. So to this end, I believe it's important from just providing knowledge to provide something that is more permanent in nature. And for this, I would propose that we build in students, both at the university and lower levels, two key things. One is character and the other is lifelong skills. By developing character, we allow people to become useful, to blaze a trail, to show their authentic selves, their true element. It gives them willpower and energy. They'll stop making excuses and being frivolous. by building character, we build character in them by teaching them to work hard and smart, to be ethical in whatever they do, to live virtues of prudence, courage, self-control, justice, as well as other virtues of humility and magnanimity. On the other hand, we also need to develop lifelong skills in an age that is always on, that is connected and global. And these lifelong skills come in the shape of digital literacy, collaboration, business skills, and critical thinking, as well as making them lifelong learners. In this current time, information by itself is meaningless. What matters is how we use it. And we can only do this if we have the necessary skills to acquire, assimilate, critique, and build on. So together, when you put character and lifelong skills together, we give our youth a passion for things they can do best and they will enjoy doing. And this should drive them beyond a mere material gain and make them look at how they can benefit the common good. This will be visible in the entrepreneurship that they will deliver to society and will allow them to create new opportunities for themselves and others at the same time. The sum total of all these entrepreneurial projects will slowly accumulate into much bigger benefits that will allow them to support themselves and their families. And in this way, we can create a thriving ecosystem. It is notable that Africa does actually have a lot of small entrepreneurs, but the real challenge is that they do not scale. And this is what we need to teach in our universities. It is only when these small entrepreneurs begin to scale and sustain their size will we see real development in Africa. And this has not been easy given the difficult economic, political, and social environment. But there are examples of this. A good example is Strive Mushibwe of Econet in Zimbabwe. And the exception must become the norm if we are to break out of the cycle of poverty. So this gives us an agenda of areas we need to improve in our education as well as an agenda for research. It is a call to identify through research, even though we may already know of it intuitively, the key traits of character that we need to see among our young people. It is a call to focus on our research agenda on how to build and sustain these traits. And lastly, in terms of specific activities, as educators, sometimes we take we look for radical transformation. And if there is no radical transformation, we say nothing can be done. But there may be other routes to success. What if each one of us did something small to see how we can build up the character and lifelong skills of our students? How we can incorporate this into our curriculums and teaching methodologies, and we can teach this to the teachers we teach. And with a little effort, each one combined with the virtue of patience, we may see our little efforts combined into a massive success. Thus, ladies and gentlemen, I leave you with my blueprint for transforming education in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Oscar, for the information. Very nicely highlighted the parts. I'll definitely will definitely come to it. It was great to know that Africa, we're having the average median age of 19, which is definitely gives a very good thing. That's a young dividend policy country with a population, where you see that globally it is around 29.6 years is a global median age, with Japan getting the highest in the world with 46%. 46.3 years is the average median age. Where in Africa, the country Niger having the youngest median age with only 14.9 years. So on an average, of course, Africa is the youngest of that one. Fine, we'll come over to the discussion towards the end. Thank you very much, Prof. Oscar. Now, from Prof. Oscar, we will be moving on to our another resource person from Kenya. We started with the alphabetical order of the countries. So we are going to Kenya. So it is going to be Dr. Ali Adan Ali, who is the Registrar for Research, Umma University in Kenya. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Professor Asif. I want to take this opportunity to thank GARA and its affiliate partners for the good job that is being done frequently to keep the scholars, the researchers well networked and also well informed. I also want to thank all the fellow panelists who have joined in this particular international conference. And I want to really agree with the theme that this is true time for Africa. As you are aware, Africa is a rich continent, which the GARA Global Advisor have mentioned in
Sorry, Professor. May I just speak to those whose mics are not muted? If they could please mute their mics so that we prevent disturbing the speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm just stopping something here. So I was saying that in Africa, this theme is very appropriate in my opinion. The reason being Africa as a continent, which has got all the resources required to drive developments of humanity, is lagging behind in many ways. And one of the contributing factors is, although the colonialism left Africa physically, they never left us where Africa, we can have the freedom to decide what we really want for our future. And one of the systems that is really highly controlled and which we really need to revisit is the issue of education, which my fellow panelists have just mentioned on. And for more than 60 or 70 years of African countries' independence, none of us are able to make any machine or assemble, or even manufacture vehicles or what. So it is time people start questioning the type of education system that we have. And I really admired the theory that was, the model that was put here by my fellow colleague. So the type of education that we really should embrace should be should comply with our culture. If we are able to, it should be able to make us utilize our resources, whereby with our education, we should be able to benefit from our African agricultural practice. We should be able to process by setting up our own relevant industries that will make us benefit from the resources that we produce in terms of jobs, in terms of promoting local and international trade between countries and the rest. So the education that we're looking for should be education that will have impact on quality of life in one way or another. And then, and therefore this calls for what is called transformations of the higher education in Africa, whereby the African government need to make a deliberate choices, whereby even if it means revisiting the key objectives of the national education or higher education. This is, I think, in my opinion, that it is time to start questioning those things so that we can be able to achieve the relevant countries' visions and then the African Vision 2063. So this education, as you are aware, for example, global education are controlled through global institutions like the UN, whereby they are the one that tries to realign the objectives. But now, since there is an opportunity created by Sustainable Development Goals, where every country has a specific agenda which they have planned to achieve for themselves, then I think education should be the driver, and therefore the objective need to be adjusted. The institution need to be revisited in terms of improved financing, in terms of improved technology innovations, in terms of revisiting how these institutions are run. And then the other thing, because once we are able to make our education, our higher education institution conducive, we'll have potential to stop one of the problems which our honorable moderator has just mentioned. It can stop the brain drains that are there. Then another key important thing is, I think the government in Africa need not to fear the education of the scholars, and the scholars should be given freedom for them to explore their own intellectual freedom so that they can pursue different models, so that they can be able to visualize how the future, or how the Africa will be a critical or global partner in the future decision makings or in the future development issues. So what I mean is the scholarship freedom. Today, African scholars are not able to reason. They cannot be able to partake or critique because of what is called undeveloped democratic system, because of the challenges related to human rights, because of related issues related to poverty, and because of the wrong political notions or narratives or models that we have. So that is all that I can say about education. As you are aware, COVID-19 devastated African economy, where thousands, if not millions, have lost economic opportunities, where land has, and therefore these problems that is associated with the COVID can only be reversed if, for example, the government will put in place the right policies that will be aimed to accelerate what we can call investments, trade. And this is where I will really profoundly recognize and appreciate the effort by African Union, where they have just recently signed an agreement to promote free trade agreement so that 1.3 billion African population will have opportunity to really start entrepreneurship innovations, technology innovations, movements of people and goods across the continent, across the countries, across the borders. So this is one of the golden things that has happened right after the COVID, and we hope many countries will be able to ratify so that this entrepreneurship will be able to pick up and then move forward. Another key important thing is in terms of research, we have got many research institutions in Africa. And these many research institutions in Africa, which includes universities, their research need to be vetted by the government so that they are directed to do research which will improve quality of life in terms of food security, in terms of climate change mitigations, in terms of sustainable development, in terms of how poverty can be reduced. So that research need to be prioritized. For example, since COVID is today one of the global hot health topic, and the world is really the world is looking for vaccine research and treatment. There is a need to invest. There is need to invest in research on African medicinal plants. There is need to invest in research that will be exploring on the rich African phytoheritage, particularly medicinal plants, so that Africa can be able to pursue the opportunity of alternative medicines, which can be easily cheap, which is easy, cheap, available, and it can be used actually to complement the conventional medicines that are there. In that way, then we can be able to handle some of the challenges associated with COVID and other diseases. Also, again, in terms of research, we need to do research. We need to prioritize research in Africa, particularly in agriculture, particularly in food production. Why this is critical is Africa has huge populations that requires water, that requires food, and therefore, if we come up with our own technology, our own research solutions, research-based solution, then the challenge of the climate change, food insecurity, and poverty can be addressed. And any produce that is produced in African continent should be processed in Africa rather than taking it to developed countries and then receiving back very expensive final product. Chair, before I conclude, I want to say none of this opportunity in education, research, and global partnership could be possible if Africa will not be going to invest in governance, in strengthening, in having what is called a mature political systems, which will be based on issues rather than having political systems that are ethnic-based, that are what you can call the clan-based, for example, that are influenced by what we can call other external powers. We need to go beyond that. Therefore, there's need for Africa, particularly the young, to start demanding accountable governance systems which will ensure that services are delivered to the citizen in the right time, in the right place, and in the right way whenever it is required. Chair, what I want to say is there is a need to liberate the African education and African research. But as you are aware, many research in Africa is driven by the developed countries, and that trend needs to be reversed. And our education it has got a lot of things which is really not correct. For example, in Kenya, my country, the issue of evolution that is being taught to people, where we are told the white men were the first to see all the good places in Kenya, for example, yet we have been having indigenous communities living there for many years, but that history is not written. Therefore, our history in Africa, education in Africa requires liberations from the wrong notions, from the wrong informations, so that we can get opportunity to write our own correct history and also enrich our education so that our education can work for us. Chair, my final thoughts, none of this vision will going to be possible if in Africa, the young innovative African leadership will not going to demand to bring to complete stop the stealing of the resources from Africa by what you can call powerful states or by their agents. So these resources today, Africa, which is rich resource, has remained poor because of the poor political system, because of poor leadership, because of corruption. And therefore, one of the messages to the African young leaders is we need a mechanisms through peaceful means, of course, that we need to bring through a democratic change of the regimes or the systems, so that the African resources that is being stolen by international powers need to be bring to stop. And in that way, we can be able to decide our future. I think, Chair, I want to stop here so that the panelists can continue exploring and continue analyzing this particular subject. And I want to say thank you so much for giving me time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Indeed, very nice. Yes, thank you. Okay, we'll come to the discussion later on. Yes, Dr. Christine.
This is really interesting, Doc. I think the aspect of colonialism is very important, and it makes very good discussion in whatever forum I've attended. One of the things that keeps on coming now is colonialism, an inherent aspect now, because you seem to see even a new generation portraying the elements of colonialism. But what is important from what Doc has been able to say here is a liberated education system for Africa, an education that is relevant to the environment, an education that is relevant to the culture of the people, an education that is relevant to the nature of the people that are within that particular country. Recently, in line with what has been presented, our grade 12s in Zambia sat for their examination, and I was talking to my nephew who wrote the exam to find out what exactly had come in the exam. And I was actually so disappointed to find that a grade 12 candidate was being asked as to who Chairman Mao was in an examination. And I wondered as to what was relevant. What was our children going to learn from knowing who Chairman Mao was? So I think this is very important. What has been presented is very important. We need to revisit our education system. And I don't know where we really need to start from, because there's been so much talk about revisiting our education system. But where do we begin from? What do we need to do to make sure that we begin to implement the kind of knowledge that has just been shared? Because the knowledge that has been shared is quite great. These models that are being shared are very good. And even what has been presented just now is very good, but we need to know, what do we really need to do to begin to come up from where we are saying we are at the moment? That is very important. So thank you very much for what has been presented. These are great models.
Thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Christine. And thank you very much, Dr. Ali Adan from Kenya. Now I would like to move on to our next speaker for today's session. It is Mr. Emmanuel Pone Wyden, who is working with the Ministry of Education in Liberia, and he is also the GARA Fellow Chapter President for Liberia. Over to you, Mr. Emmanuel.
Thank you, Professor. I hope I'm loud enough.
Yes, you are.
Thank you so much. Let me appreciate the forum, and let me appreciate you for organizing this. I also want to appreciate my colleague from Liberia, Kobalage, for connecting me, to this forum and to the GARA family. I'm sorry for joining in late. At the moment, I'm en route to Soften, part of Liberia, so I have to make a stop in one of the cities to be able to participate in this forum.
Thank you. If
So I'm
possible,
very
we
sorry
can see
for
you also. If possible, we
Okay.
can switch on the camera. We can have a look, Mr. Emmanuel.
Yeah. Oh, I thought my video was okay.
Thank you.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Very good.
Okay, I'm sitting in the car now. You see the logo at the back here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right. So again, my name is Emmanuel Boone Wedon, and I work for Ministry of Education Liberia, Director for Program Coordination and External Support Services. And I also run an NGO called Liberia Early Child Professional Network. So at the same time, recently I want to appreciate Professor for referring me to lead GARA activity in Liberia as the chapter president. So I'm very grateful. On behalf of GARA chapter Liberia, we are very grateful. So today, I will be speaking on early childhood, the COVID-19 and early childhood education in Liberia. Early childhood is very near to our hearts in Liberia, especially at our network, and especially the GARA team in Liberia. So when we were contacted, so I thought it was important to talk about what has transpired in early childhood of late, coming to play the COVID-19 and how far we are. And the kind of work that Liberia Early Childhood Professional Network is doing to improve the outcomes of early childhood in Liberia. Okay, so I will begin with a brief background on early childhood in Liberia. So actually in 2011, though we've been having some form of ABC, we call it ABC, that level. Before we could have the Global Council of Early Childhood Education, we used to call it ABC, any education that, that was below grade 1. So, but in 2011, there was a major reform in our education system. Am I okay?
Okay.
Yes, we can hear
Hello?
you.
You can hear me?
Yes, very clear.
Okay, thank you. So in 2011, so the Ministry of Education established a bureau at the Ministry of Education called Bureau of Early Childhood Education. And that bureau's sole responsibility, I'm hearing somebody in the back. Am I not clear?
No, you're very
okay,
clear
okay.
enough. I think people should just mute their mics.
Okay, yeah, that would be good.
But go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. So the Bureau is responsible to lead the development of early childhood activities in Liberia and programs, design it, develop it, implement it, and monitor, and ensure that children from 0 to 6 years, are given the services they need to have, so as to make smooth transition from of 5 years to 6 years. So in our policy as well, when a child is 6, that child should be in grade 1. So our early child prepares the child to move to grade 1. Yeah. So in the policy, it has basic features. So I can just talk about a few. So we define early child development in general to be physical, cognitive, social, emotional, hygiene, nutrition, safety, and social protection issues. So it runs from 0 to 6 years, and there are 3 levels. So we have nursery, so that is 3 to 4 years in one class. Then beginners, we have 4 to 5. Then kindergarten is 5 to 6. So we have home-based early childhood, and the home-based early childhood focuses on parents and caregivers, giving them the skills and knowledge they need to be able to take care of the children. and even baby mothers as well, or people who already, are carrying babies, pregnant women. So the community-based and the school-based, they have the same kind of framework. So they deal strictly with teachers and also community people, giving them the kind of awareness they need to have, so as to make positive impacts in the life of children. So at this level, there is a curriculum, that guides them, to be able to move. So there is this intersectoral collaboration established, and it comprises Ministry of Education as the lead. Then we have Ministry of Health, we have Gender and Social Protection, Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Youth and Sports, Ministry of Internal Affairs. We have finance, of course, finance, has to play a major role. Then civil society and other organizations and business organizations as well, to ensure that there is this better environment for young children to grow. So there is a professional development framework. It starts with early childhood development, community education awareness program. So this targets policymakers, community people, even teachers, parents, giving awareness on the importance of early childhood education and early childhood development in general. Then the next step to that is we call it ECD step, which is early childhood development skill training education program. It's a comprehensive package for teaching, of teaching tools, for a wide range of individuals who are currently providing early childhood services and those who are career changers. Some people are from basic education or from different, specialties. They want to move to early childhood. So this tool is for them. Then we have the certification program. So from time immemorial, we have not had this kind of program in Liberia, early childhood program in Liberia. So we also want to have colleges, universities, teaching early childhood education. And then there are teacher training institutions now specialized to teach early childhood program. We call it ECE, or early childhood C certificate program, before they are allowed to teach in the classroom. Then there is a higher education component, that has to do with the AA, BSc, and master's degree, and so forth. And these are directed towards, having more skilled people, in the classroom to be able to teach, and for people to also specialize and be able to train other people. So there is a curriculum. We have a national curriculum, and currently we are developing early learning development standards, to guide us in how we move ahead. So the curriculum is broken down into 5 major components. So there is a component called Me and My Family, and that is taught for 3 months. That is from September, October to November. Then we have Staying Healthy, and Staying Healthy is only taught in December. So then we have My Neighborhood, which is for January and February. Then Food We Eat, March and April. Then My Environment, it goes May and June. So our academic year runs for 10 months. And in early childhood, the way we teach in early childhood is different from that of grade 1 to grade 12. So it's a self-contained class. I'm sure it's like that almost everywhere. So the teachers are trained, to have a particular skill to be able to handle the children at a particular level. So since 2012, level of enrollment has increased. Okay, 2014, 2015, for example, we have 519,000 enrollment in early childhood. Then 2019, 2020 academic year, the one we just ended, we are over 600,000 enrollment. Then teachers, 2014, 2015, we had 13,517. 2019, 2020, 15,000 plus teachers. Okay, so you see challenges prior to COVID-19 pandemic. There has been this limited awareness among stakeholders, including policymakers, school administrators, community people, parents, on the importance of early childhood education. So most of the time, most of the parents are like, no, the child is so young to go to school. So maybe I should wait until the child is 8 years or 9 years before they go to school, because I don't want to waste my money. So we have not, as a country, have not been able to really get this message across the board for people to understand. And because of that, even policymakers are finding it difficult too, because there should be budget allotment for early childhood, but at the moment there is no budgetary allotment for early childhood. So and even the curriculum we have now is not articulated into teachable materials like student activity books, teacher instructional guides, So there is this high level of teachers who are not qualified and they are in the classroom. And then even those who are qualified, it's very difficult to get in the classroom because of some incentive that they expect to have, but government cannot give to them right now. Then we don't have database on early childhood. So our research capacity is very weak in early childhood. Almost everywhere in the sector, research capacity is very weak. So we don't know where we're making progress and how we're making progress. So I think getting connected with GARA is going to be an eye opener also for us in this direction, so that together we can work to ensure that there is a research the research database that we can work together to bring to life activities or statistics in early childhood that will help us to make some decisions. So when it comes to monitoring and supervision mechanism in the school level, at the school levels, is also weak because there is no enough resources for early childhood. We squarely depend on donor funding for early childhood in Liberia, and which is a problem. It's a risk as well for that level of learning, because this is the beginning. So if we don't make it right, it's going to be a problem. Then high rate over age. So early childhood runs from 0 to 6 years. So any child you find in the early childhood space, whether 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, they are over age. So in
Mr. Emmanuel.
I think he's lost connectivity.
I think we have lost Mr. Emmanuel at the moment with the connectivity. Meanwhile, till he joins in, we have a very distinguished guest with us at the moment. It is Professor Rungano, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of the great Zimbabwe University. I welcome you, Honorable Vice Chancellor, to be here with us in this occasion. It's really a matter of pride and honor to have your presence with us over here. Prof, you can unmute. Okay, but I think we have no connection at the moment from Mr. Emmanuel. Hopefully, he can join us later. We can carry on. Dr. Kristen, can we just carry on, please, so that...
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yes.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor Sopo. I acknowledge your realization that I'm now around. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable Vice Chancellor. Now, I would like to request Ms. Korbalage Patricia, who is an early childhood expert. She can just come in, and she's currently working with the Ministry of Education in Dubai, and she's also the GARA Fellow Secretary General for Liberia. Over to you, Ms. Korbalage.
Thank you very much. I have a brief presentation I'd like to share just as I'm speaking. Can everyone see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let me present. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. It's a great pleasure to be part of what I'm sure is a stimulating conversation, and it has been stimulating so far. My great thanks to Professor Asif for arranging a much needed discussion. Today, I will take the opportunity to speak about the importance of culture in early childhood education. In my allotted time, I'll present a brief overview and then my view of a path forward. Early childhood education, depending upon where you are in the world, ranges from birth to age 5 or 8 or 9. During these critical years, young children's brains develop at a rapid pace, and this presents an amazing opportunity to hardwire their approach to the world as they form their understanding through their interactions with their environment. Though initially thought to be blank slates, research has shown us that children are active learners during this time. As such, the importance of high-quality provision cannot be overstated. High-quality provision need not be the newest or the shiniest object or toys, but the type of resources and interactions that stimulate young brains. These include, but are not limited to, one-on-one interactions with caregivers who are very attentive, opportunities to develop physically. This includes simple things such as placing babies on the floor to give their neck muscles a chance to develop, or exposure to high quality language, be it being spoken to directly, being read to, or simply being in the vicinity of good quality conversations. Interactions with open-ended resources also allow for divergent and innovative thinking to begin. These young years are also when, hello? Can everyone mute, please? These young years are also a time when children begin to grow in their understanding of who they are and how they fit into the context of their immediate family, local community, and nation. This is the point of my discussion today. Before moving forward, let's take a brief look at what outlines culture. Each culture has things that are bespoke to them, their language, knowledge, beliefs, norms, customs, habits, and art. These form the bedrock of who you are as a person and are vital for young children because in the early years of life, they are awakening to awareness. In these years, I, as a child, organized my thoughts about the world, how the world works through the lens of my culture and the culture of others. Giving the acceptance that early childhood is the time of tremendous growth and development, the understanding of what culture is can be looked at through the work of Bronfenbrenner. His ecological systems theory clearly lays out the layers through which a person develops. As seen here, there are many things that impact children as they develop. In this system, there is interdependence between the layers. Thus, a change in one impacts the change in the other. With this view, it's easy to see how changes in culture, in this case, African culture, has impacted the African child. A change in or lack of adherence to the core tenets of a given culture will impact on how a child develops. As governments structure their education systems, the interplay of the elements of the macro system, laws, culture, social class, needs to be structured to produce citizens that move forward their strategic goals. However, it is often seen that culture is left out of the systems as they develop, or that culture is placed last on the hierarchy. In change management, we see the importance of understanding the voice of relevant stakeholders in this conversation. This ensures greater buy-in when the final plan for change is produced. Similarly, governments need to ensure that the culture is embedded in whatever plan they have for advancing their education system, as it will produce greater buy-in. It's vital that systems look inward at their citizens to see what their innate strengths, values, and cultures are when producing systemic plans. Simply identifying deficiencies, then trying to repair them with programs imported from countries deemed economically developed will not be successful. Even within economically developed countries, those who have been successful have kept their culture at the core of their systems and have seen better results. It's easier for them to galvanize all sectors towards a shared purpose of improving learning outcomes. In African countries, a similar approach would be beneficial. By this, I mean looking at the lessons learned and adapting those rather than taking their system and simply placing it into the African context. In early childhood education and development, this means a holistic approach. Voices of parents, community leaders, researchers, and leaders across different sectors within a specific country are needed to come together to develop a profile of the young learner we hope to produce. It is well known that children will rise or fall to the level of our expectation. However, this can only be when the proper supports are put in place. Simply because research is conducted in a non-African country and produces specific outcomes does not mean it should be wholesale accepted. There is no harm in seeing if children move at a similar pace when their culture is taken into account. As shown here, we cannot discount the uniqueness of each culture when looking at learning outcomes. A new perspective. Given all of these issues, a new perspective in education, but specifically early childhood education, is needed within the African context. The culture lens of education. This perspective challenges all aspects of learning to be viewed through the lens of culture. In early childhood, we recognize the uniqueness of each child and accept that while there may be general trends of growth and development, each child develops at their own pace. Similarly, we need to consider that what may happen when children are presented learning through a lens which they see most clearly. Looking through the culture lens of education encourages a child not only to learn content and skills, but also allows them to view how they fit in within these content or skills. They are given the opportunity through books that depict their culture, songs that reinforce their language, practices that show their value, to see themselves as able and important. The more able a child feels, the more apt they are to learn new and challenging tasks. In early childhood education, we see this daily as babies learn to walk, fall, get up, try again through the encouragement of their caregivers. Grit and determination is the natural human disposition, and when young children are shown the importance of their culture as they learn, this is reinforced. In short, as we strive to produce young innovators and creatives, we need to recognize that they need to be cultivated by imparting vital academic knowledge and skills, but also their cultural values. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Skorbolage, for the insightful information of the early childhood. And we'll come back to the discussion session when Prof. U is here. He's very interested to so we have a special session for that towards the end. We'll come in. Okay, I'm very glad to see Mr. Emmanuel have rejoined. He could rejoin us. Mr. Emmanuel, if you want to complete that you were saying when you got disconnected from us.
Okay. Prof, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you very clear.
Okay. I'm sorry, I had to go off abruptly. I don't even know what happened. So I was talking about COVID-19 and early childhood education, and then comparing early childhood education to basic and secondary education. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it very clearly.
Okay. So when we closed school, then later on the government said we can come back to school. You know, we can open school for students to continue to complete. But however, for early childhood specifically, you know, early childhood schools were closed for good for the academic year that just ended. And then basic and secondary education reopened in October. Then teaching by radio was initiated. It wasn't effective for early childhood because we don't have the kind of infrastructure for the parents to be able to teach the children. However, it was somehow effective for grade 1 to grade 12. And then, so in general, COVID-19 left the youngest learners alone with their parents and caregivers. And so nothing much happened for them. Then for grade 1 to grade 9, stakeholders, you know, though everywhere, everybody was unaware of this virus, but at least they could work together, you know, to do something that brought a little bit of knowledge for grade 1 to grade 12, but not for early childhood. So they were just sitting home. So as a change strategy, we call this change strategy, you know, the emergence of Liberia Early Childhood Professional Network. So it's a non-for-profit organization established as a national platform for early child development with emphasis on ECE. So we want to ensure that every early childhood school in Liberia is up to standard. So for this reason, we are collaborating with the Bureau of Early Childhood Education to implement major programs across the country in early childhood. We are also a part of Africa Early Childhood, actually a subset, to Africa Early Childhood Network. So we call it the Mothers Organization, Africa Early Childhood Network. And the whole operation in Liberia with respect to early childhood, when it comes to Liberia Early Childhood Professional Network, was inspired by the Africa Early Childhood Network. So our current work, we are developing materials. Remember, we have curriculum, but they are not something that we can teach. We can teach teachers for them to be able to teach the students. So we are developing teacher instructional guide. We are doing student activity books, for the different levels. We are also developing instructional apps, for parents and for caregivers. And then we are developing national ECE resource kits for local contests, for use for the early childhood schools. So we're rolling out training, and then we're setting up playgrounds, model playgrounds for people to implicate. Then we're also doing monitoring and evaluation in the schools. After training, we follow up with monitoring evaluation to ensure, the teachers and the principals are doing the right thing. So we are into research. We don't have data. We don't have enough data to make decisions. So we're helping also the Bureau to do research in different areas of early childhood. Then we are into... Hello?
Yes, please carry on. Yes, please carry on.
Okay, so we are into advocacy as well. Nothing can really happen in early childhood or any sector if the people who are supposed to make the decision are not aware of their inaction or their actions. So we are carrying on a very serious research in early childhood to ensure that the lawmakers, the parliament, members of the parliament understand the importance of early childhood education, and then they can take some actions to put some money in the budget to support early childhood program in Liberia. School administrators, community leaders, and parents as well, they need to know specific things in early childhood. So our vision is for all young children in Liberia to experience holistic early stimulation. They are safe, they are healthy, they are happy, and they are achieving their full potential. Thank you very much, and we are very happy to share on this international platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel, our GARA's Liberia chapter president. Definitely we'll come towards the end part of the program. We'll have a discussion on it. And really it's a very insightful information on the education system of Liberia. And we look forward definitely, as you mentioned, with our partnership to develop, to have the early childhood statistics and data. And we'll definitely look forward how we can both collaborate and, as a platform and take it way forward. Thank you very much. I highly appreciate you getting reconnected and coming back and completing the task. Okay. Fine, thank you. Now from Liberia, we move on to Nigeria. Our next presenter, Dr. BC Akin Alabi, the Secretary General of Ola Foundation in Nigeria. Over to you, Dr. BC Akin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here this afternoon. I am so happy to be part of the dialogue in Africa. I would like to share a screen, if that's fine.
Yes, it's fine. You can share the screen, no problem.
Thank you. The topic I've chosen today is Africa Time is Now. And I'm gonna open up by quoting my president. The president of Ola Foundation, Saliu Isholalimi, said, I think Africa time is now. I think that Africa must awake to our responsibility of building our own future based on its people. She must give power to the youth of the continent through education. One of my main goals on this planet is to make this happen, to initiate the series of steps that will see Africans becoming globally competitive and locally relevant. So, like everyone has been talking about development in Africa and challenges and solutions, I would like to approach this topic by looking at the why, what, when, and how cases. Why are we here? What do we need to do to move from here to where we want to be? And when is now? And how do we begin? When we look at the why, what, when, and how cases, we'll be able to know that it is imperative that we also have a continued monitoring and evaluation system in place. Why is this needed? What are the impacts we need to measure? How do we measure the impact, and why do we start the measurement? And I started to answer the questions, the why, what, and how are cases. Why are we here? Everyone has been talking. I've mentioned colonialization. The colonialization has done immense damage to the psyche of a typical African individual. You will all agree with me that this is the bane of our problems. Conveniently, we were handed an education that is Western-centric, based on Western values. It promotes only their values and superiority, which makes us feel inferior. And in essence, the majority of our people become mediocres who do not think about how they can do better. How can we do better? And why are we getting a certain unfavorable result? Or they cannot even think whether the result they're getting is the best they can get. And if yes, is this best yielding the result we need to move from point A to B? If no, what can be done to change the narrative? These are all critical thinking skills that are often found to be missing in the African society. And the ultimate result of all this is poverty. So basically, poverty is the ultimate result of colonialization, which gives us unwholesome education and ignorance. And ignorance promotes mediocrity and poverty. So moving on, what do we need in Africa? What do we need? We need solutions that will be implemented through experts drawn from the following groups. When I say experts, I'm talking about subject matter experts. We need to look in what? Look at Africans in Africa and in the diaspora. We need to engage private corporations, government agencies, Friends of Africa, and volunteer efforts like the NGOs, charity, civil society, social enterprise organizations, and so on. These are the people we need. It's a big collaboration for African Renaissance. And then I went on to answer the when question. When? And we all agree with me, the time is now. It's time for Africa. The when is now, but how do we start? The starting point, like everybody has said, is education. Education for all. As a human rights imperative, we must begin by ensuring every child gets equitable and qualitative education that does not rob us of our cultural identity. We need to plug the gap in Western education that fails to promote the uniqueness and the brilliance. Education has the power to change lives. It opens doors to better employment, more active citizenship, and well-informed health choices, which benefit future generations. At its best, education transforms the prospect of poor and marginalized children and builds more meritocratic societies. So the decolonization process must start now, and it must start from education. My next slide. Like I said, when we have considered the why, the what, the when and the how. We also need to know that we need continuous monitoring and evaluation. We need to set up like a surveillance kind of system whereby we are constantly monitoring impacts and the outcomes of the solutions that we are implementing through the network of subject matter experts that we will have put together, you know, and this must be carefully decided and aggressively pursued. We need to look inwardly and utilize our uniqueness, our strength, and natural endowment, our talents, resources, and crafts. We need some people's mic needs to be muted.
Excuse me, can we unmute the mics or let the speaker mic be on, please? Thank you for your cooperation.
I was making this presentation just 10 minutes ago.
Thank you. We need quick wins. We must all come together. We must unite for a common purpose. And that's what the renaissance of Africa. In conclusion, the time is now to focus on our nuclear sacrifices. Can the administrator mute them? They can be muted by the administrator. Thank you. The time is now to focus on our peculiar circumstances in Africa so that we can quickly square up with the rest of the world. And it's happening because in Nigeria, for example, we have some young guys that just invented Paystack. They are from Nigeria and they are rivaling PayPal, which is from America. We have more amazing development coming from Africa. I can go on and on, but time will not permit me to talk about what is happening in Zambia, what's happening in South Africa recently. And we need to celebrate these Amazons. We must not wait for others to tell our stories. We must tell it our own way, change our narratives ourselves. We know that self-help is the best help and the most productive help so far. Thank you. Wait to get more information about what we do in all our Up Foundation. We can connect with you. You can visit us and support our work in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. B.C. Akin. And indeed, GARA and Ola Foundation would be collaborating for some very productive activities. I do look forward for that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have our another guest from Nigeria. We have with us Ambassador Dr. Regina Inem, who is the founder of Ragamos in Nigeria, and is also the GARA Fellow Chapter President for Nigeria. Over to you, Dr. Ambassador Regina.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm really excited to be here. Prof, I really appreciate you, and I appreciate everyone that has spoken before me, and I look forward to contributing also. We are talking about quality education in Africa. I would say, from the research point of view, Sub-Saharan Africa has the highest rate of education exclusion. We have a lot of children that are out of school. Now, even the ones that are actually educated and have gone to the four walls of schools, what kind of education have they received? Now, if you look at the situation of Africa today, if our educational system has been successful, we will see it in Africa. Africa is still referred to as a third world country. Why? Because something is lacking, and the bedrock is education. I have been in the teaching profession for over 24 years. and grounded with the African curricula, like the Nigerian one and the British curriculum. Now, what our curriculum offers is outdated. It grooms youth to not to think critically. It grooms, it brings out graduates that are not creative, that cannot solve problems, that lack problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills, that lack character. Why, when I say character, not the moral character, but character in believing in themselves. So I would say there's a major defect in our curriculum. I have researched economies of the world that are doing very well. One of the economy I'm always so proud of talking about is the Singaporean economy. And how did they get to where they are today? They focused on the educational system and decided to build a curriculum that will groom their citizens to have critical thinking skills, creativity skills, problem-solving skills. So I would say we are lacking there. The next thing we have that is facing Africa, COVID-19 has come into the world. Technology. If you look around in most African countries, most students are out of school because they cannot leverage on technology to deliver quality education. One, the infrastructure is not even there. Many schools don't have laptops, desktops, and the ones that do have are private schools. I can tell you during the lockdown last year, a lot of children didn't attend school. Now, the teachers themselves are not technological savvy, so they need training. The parents also don't even believe in why should I pay school fees online for online lessons. So a lot of schools are at the verge of closing down as we speak, because many of them, the parents didn't pay fees and children were at home and they cannot even pay the staff. So a lot of teachers are out of jobs. And those that are in jobs are being paid half salary. So the education of a parent to understand and appreciate technology in this 21st century is very paramount. Another thing that has affected education in Africa is funding. If you look at the budget, of the African countries, you will notice that the funding, the budgetary allocation for education is very, very low. So education is not even taken as a priority. And when education is not a priority, a lot of things will go wrong, because this is the bedrock of any economy in the world. So I would say the funding of the educational sector in Africa should be a top priority in our budgets, in the budgets of the different countries. Now, if you now look at the universities, yes, I've been listening to all the speakers talking about research. I follow the research done in Africa so much, but this research they have done, how has it helped Africa? How has it brought in new inventions? How has it solved our local problems? We are talking about vaccine now. Everybody is waiting for vaccine from the UK, from the US. Why can't we produce African vaccines? We produce our crops. All our crops are exported at very low prices to Western world. They manufacture it, bring it back to us, and we pay ×5 or ×10 the prices. Why can't we set up manufacturing hubs here in Africa? Why can't our university research and build machines that can solve agricultural problems? So I would say There should be a synergy between the academia and industry. If this synergy exists, the African economy will grow. The African economy will succeed. Then we now come back to I emphasize that education transcends beyond the math, the physics, the chemistry. Skills is very paramount. Lately in the internet, everybody have been celebrating Elon Musk as the richest in the world. He's a South African, an African, but grew up and at the Western kind of education. That's, for me, what that spells is that we have talent in Africa. All we need is having the right educational framework to groom and bring out this talent. So it is important we overhaul our educational sector in Africa. And still on education again, education of the mind. A lot of Africans, we are not proud of who we are. We are losing value of our culture. We want to be westernized. If we want to buy any product, if it is made outside Africa, oh, we are super excited to buy it. Meanwhile, we have entrepreneurs producing same products even better, but we celebrate the Western economies and make them richer while we impoverish ourselves. So I believe Africans should have good self-esteem. They should be proud to be African. They should be proudly African. They should be proud of who they are. And this will go a long way to build our own economy. So in a nutshell, what my organization have been doing over the years is to center on quality education. Quality education where teachers are trained, because we really need teachers to be trained. Teachers cannot give what they don't have. So we center on building teachers, and we do this with state governments and private organizations that contact us to help them out. And our foundation is also passionate about the vulnerable. A lot of people, a lot of children are out of school because they can't even afford the so-called free education offered by the public schools. And any economy that have more than 60% that are still illiterate, that economy can't grow. So I will say the solution to our problem in Africa is focusing on our curriculum. Let us build our curriculum to be able to capture the critical thinking skills, the problem-solving skills, the decision-making skills, all embedded in our curriculum, the 5 C's as we call it. Then the next thing is building our infrastructure. Now I'm having this webinar here. I can tell you that I had to look for the strongest network to do this. We have a challenge with internet connectivity. I have traveled all over the world. I see that the internet connectivity outside Africa is stronger. So I think also basic internet infrastructure is important for even the e-learning to be effective in Africa. So on this note, I would say, let's build our educational system by revisiting our curriculum. Let's build our mindset and be proudly African. Let's put in basic infrastructure in place, and also let us ensure that the teachers, the parents are trained to understand that technology is indispensable at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Dr. Regina Inem. It's very insightful information, and indeed, the challenges that you have been saying, yes, it is persisting in Africa and also in many parts of the globe as well, where we see that some of the infrastructural level, especially on the e-learning platform at the moment, is a big challenge. So we are talking about quality education, but lack of infrastructure. Students, many children are not even having the basic of education at the moment. So we are far away from maintaining the quality. So definitely those are the issues. We'll come back later on today in the program. Okay, now we would love to move on from Nigeria to Zambia. May I request kindly Prof. Dr. Willard Branford Musale, the Chairman, Department of Business Administration at the Rusango University in Zambia, to kindly share his opinion in this platform. Dr. Willard, are you able to hear me? You have to unmute, Dr. Willard. Dr. Willard, because I can see him here. Dr. Willard, you have to unmute.
He's speaking.
Is he? Okay, maybe there is some network issues. I'm not so sure. Okay, we will come back to Dr. Willard a bit shortly. May I kindly request Professor Dr. Norman Kachamba from the Northrise University in Zambia to kindly share with us his views in this platform.
Gladly so. Thank you so much, Prof. Can you hear me?
Yes, very clear.
Oh, thanks. It's indeed another pleasure and a rare opportunity. And I wish to appreciate and recognize all the dignitaries and the think tanks of Africa who have so far participated and contributed. I've enjoyed quite a lot of insights.
I think he's gone as well.
Yeah, I'm seeing that he's also network issues.
Mm.
And of course, that's indeed one of the challenges you can see.
Yeah.
Okay, we would come back both the speakers. Let me see if I have my next speaker here, Professor Dr. Jeffeus Gormuri from Zimbabwe, who is the Director of Research and Innovation at the Integrated Solar Solution for Africa. Prof, are you here with us?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Prof. I think you may start. Let the other will come, they will join, no problem.
Yeah.
All right, good afternoon, and
Good
thank you
afternoon.
for having me on this very important platform. Let me recognize the presence of my Vice Chancellor, Professor Zogo, and also my colleague, Prof. Chazovachi, without whom I couldn't have maybe been able to participate in this forum. So, all right. So I'm going to speak about innovation in industrialization through Education 5.0 agenda in Zimbabwe. So what is it? I will skip some of these because of time constraints. So Education 5.0 agenda, we are all talking about the pillars or components of Education 5.0, which is teaching, research, community engagement. These are the traditional components of higher institute education components. The Zimbabwean Education 5.0 has transitioned to add the fourth one, which is innovation and industrialization. So under this Education 5.0, Zimbabwe State University must launch into outcome a focused national developing activity, which is aimed to move towards a competitive, modern and industrialized Zimbabwe. And we are saying now it's all about problem solving for value creation. So a bit more about that, we are saying Zimbabwe's Education 5.0 modernization agenda. Hello? Sorry. So we are saying the Zimbabwe's modernization agenda is all about industrialization, which and champions must be state universities. And state universities, by their nature and character, they are better positioned to grasp and decipher and the disruptive technologies such as the IoT and the advanced robotics and the others. So these continue to dramatically reshape the global business and social landscape. So we are also saying these higher institutions of learning will be able to provide industrial solutions to impact our national economy. So I will probably skip on the definitions of innovation and industrialization. But however, to reiterate what I have said, I will quote this statement by the regional manager of production manager for Cyprus Africa, who says, industrialization is the motive behind economic growth. And although Africa has and although Africa has made strides in this regard, more can be done through the adoption of disruptive technology. So in line with this, we are saying Great Zimbabwe University is one of the higher institutions of learning in Zimbabwe. And we are trying to leverage on our heritage-based innovation as a vehicle towards industrialization. So we have the Directorate of the Research and Innovation, whose mandate is to galvanize research at the Great Zimbabwe University through coordinating the engagement of all schools and faculties. So we also have the mission to incubate and commercialize all the research, and this is going to be carried through the use of our various industrial parks. Out of this commercialization, we hope to generate startups and spin-off companies, which will help drive the Zimbabwean economy. So the innovation hubs, so far, the construction of innovation hubs and industrial parks in Zimbabwe has already started. And we find that from University of Zimbabwe, Chinhoyi, National Science and Technology, all these institutions, the innovations hub, have been completed. And we have seen the rise in patents registration from this innovation hub. So just to quote our Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education and Science Technology Development, who is Professor Amon Muruira, he is saying innovation hubs shall be sources of our new technology. Innovation hub is where technology will be born. So how about Great Zimbabwe? It's not in this list of innovation hub, so which is why I'm saying it's loading. So it's a work in progress, and we have already started the designing and construction of our innovation hub. So this is what the picture of the innovation hub will be like, but what is going to be happening under that? First of all, we have already talked about maybe disruptive technology. And we know that when we are talking about industrialization, we can't do that without jumping into Industry 4.0. So just as an introduction of Industry 4.0, these are the components of Industry 4.0, which includes like advanced robotics, industrial Internet of Things, 3D printing or 3D additive manufacturing, and all other components. So at Great Zimbabwe University, we have embraced the disruptive technology by also having to look at artificial intelligence and establish the artificial intelligence lab. We are also into additive manufacturing, which is 3D printing, and we are establishing a fab lab and 3D printing workshops for students and communities. And we're also into open source hardware and software. So furthermore, we have Internet of Things, where we are talking about smart concept, and we have advanced robotics, where we are covering areas of autonomous robots, advanced manufacturing, research, and nanorobotics. We also have blockchain technology, which we know is very critical. Once we are into Industry 4.0, we are working with big data. Security of information is very critical. So blockchain technology will be a vehicle to try and probably help us adopt that. So we are also working into that. And we're also interested in autonomous vehicles, which is also drones and the boats, which are very critical. Augmented reality, virtual reality are also very critical for all this. And we are embracing all those technologies. And this includes also renewable energy technologies. So in order to commercialize all these studies that are, these researches that are being done in our research hub, we also have industrial parks. So we have proposed 4 industrial parks. Out of these 4, the first one is the one that is under construction, and some units are already operational, which is the Robert G. Mugabe Industrial Park Complex. Then I will introduce the others as we go. So under this industrial park complex, this comprises of 5 principal buildings, which is the textile factory, where we are producing masks and the work suits, graduation regalia, and various forms of PPEs. Also, we have the health and science water packaging workshops for making sanitizers and these products and branded water purification. We also have blow molding and indigenous instruments workshops. We also have food technology workshops. And also we have got a specialized documentation center or library to keep all that information and keep track of the researches that is going on. So because of these strides that we have made as an institution, we have also been able to contribute and respond to this COVID-19 pandemic. So we have, like I said, we are already making sanitizers, and we are making even medical gowns and face masks. And these pictures, you can see, we have our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Nganozogo here, handing over some sanitizers that we have produced to the resident minister for distribution to the Ministry of Health. So we have taken a lot of strides to try and contribute in combating the spread of this disease. So just as some artistic impression of the industrial park, the Robert Mugabe Industrial Park, these are some of the images. And the area of view is that this is the garment factory where we are manufacturing all those face masks and the other clothing related products. And this is the factory where sanitizers and water packaging will be done, and the blow molding and industrial, our indigenous instrument studies, and the food technology will be here. So since we are saying we are heritage-based, we want also to leverage on some of our natural fruits, natural or indigenous, let me say, indigenous or traditional grains and other things, and try to do value addition in place. So an example of some of the indigenous fruits that have critical, medicinal values that we just neglect, which we think we can leverage on packaging and also deriving some of the health benefits for the nation. So lastly, but not last, we have got also what is called the Dryland Agriculture Research Center of Excellence, which is being under construction as we speak. And this one will be having like an industrial park for value addition of African grains, or used to be called small grains, but I think we have moved from that word. We have a gene bank, we have got plant breeding and botanical gardens, which we are trying to also take advantage of our own traditional, maybe plants and medicine for ethno medicine and also ethno pharmaceuticals. So we also have the Mwenezi Moria Farm Industrial Park, where we are trying to grow sugarcane, and from there we will produce our own ethanol and have a cogen plant. So this is underway. The land for growing sugarcane is being cleared as we speak, and we have a Mashaba Industrial Park where we want to do material processing. So in brief, if you look at all these setup is such that we have kind of an industrial ecology where we will not go around maybe buying or packaging. We'll make our own packaging and from one industrial park, and that is going to be used in another division to package our own products. So in conclusion, let me say what we can say from this is universities are key drivers for innovation. And this example is clear if we look at how a single research institute can impact a region. Like in 2004 alone, MIT produced 133 patents and launched 20 startup companies and spent about 1.2 billion in sponsors research. So data from 1994 shows that at that time, MIT graduates had founded 4,000 companies employing 1.1 million people to generate like 232 billion in sales nationwide. So ladies and gentlemen, I think if we transform our universities, this is what is going to be a backbone for transformation of our economies as African countries. So universities and industrialization. We also have seen that the most famous example of university-led economic development is Stanford University, which has played a central role in the emergence of the Silicon Valley, which we all, I think we are all aware about. So also no industrialization means that we have a slow growth in economy, and slow growth means less power and hence no say. I think we have all heard about the G7, G8 or whatever. None of the African countries who are really considered third world countries sit on that table. So we have no power to say. So industrialization will enable us to grow our economy, and this will only give us our dignity as African countries. So in conclusion, I also, as a concluding statement, let me quote our professor, our minister, Professor Emurwila, when he said, Africa had had the tragedy of being made to read the wrong manual for a long time. And this has to be stopped by Africa herself. Thus, Education 5.0 is our own design manual. Heritage philosophy is our own design manual. The fact that Africa is relatively less industrialized compared with other parts of the world is changing, and we are changing it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your audience.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Goamuri, for those insightful information about the great Zimbabwe University. And indeed, all your endeavor, especially in terms of COVID, is also very great as your university name is. So we'll come back to you for the discussions. Thank you. And we do look forward in seeing that, in part of research and other things, how our both platforms can be embedded. Thank you. Can I know that for example, Prof. Dr. Willard Branford, are you back with us with our net connection? Dr. Willard? Okay, so I think still he has issues. Professor Dr. Norman Kachamba from Zambia. I think you have to unmute, Prof.
Yes, Prof, I'm around now.
Yes, okay. Can we hear you now, please? Thank you.
Yes. I actually had started, but some technical issues arose and disrupted the flow of my discussion.
Right.
I'm now compelled to begin by paying great thanks to the just ended presenter from the great University of Zimbabwe. He's really harped on a very, very powerful note for our progress and development in Africa. May I get into my discussion by beginning with these statements. The human race exists in a state of diversity of culture. This diversity of culture has brought about so many disparities and adversities to such an extent that some races appear as if their lives were less human. Are you getting me?
Yes, yes, we can get you very clearly.
The slides could be removed.
Yes, Professor, Dr. Goamori, if you can just close your screen share so we can see the person there.
Hello.
Hello, Professor. Dr. Goamori, can you just close the slide, please? Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And can I add by saying Africa as a continent has been in this strange paradox of wallowing in abject poverty despite abundant resources. And the tendency in most of the debates and arguments has been of blaming it all on the Western world. Much as I agree with that, I wish to emphasize a few things here. In my argument, I want to say that human needs are the same everywhere. And the cultural diversities are an expression that the means to meet the needs may vary, but our needs remain the same. Thus, peculiarities and idiosyncrasies that exist only in the means should not obscure the fact that our needs will remain the same, regardless of our geographical distributions. And so as we administer education, I do realize that education must be a means of addressing our needs. If our needs are common or are the same, then though we vary in the means of addressing our needs, we should be focused on the fact that these needs are human, and we must be getting to certain things that must be helping us to put ourselves in the correct perspective. And so in my discussion, I want first to interrogate the practice, as other speakers have already alluded to, major issues that are surrounding our slow progress in terms of how fast we can meet and address our needs as Africa can be attributed to so many things, but they all fall around these things: the political, the economics, the social stroke religion, the technology, the environmental, and the legal systems that we have in Africa. These have actually been the very reason why we move at a pace that we move at. And so as we look at the political systems in our African setup, it leaves a lot to desire. Our economics, as other speakers have already alluded to, leave a lot to desire. In short, all these things are embedded in our culture and how we do things. Now, if we are to realize and to get to where we're supposed to be, where other continents are, I feel we need to begin addressing these things. But the question has been, and it still stands, where do we begin from? And so this brings us back to one thing that we are all harping on, and that is education. And so all these systems, the political, economic, social, technology, environment, and legal systems, they are all stems of the same root, and that is education. So if we address the root system, then the shoot system will fall in place correctly. And this is why, like other speakers have said, we need to do something about our education system. If we talk about our politicians, universities are the breeding places for politicians. Our economies are bred from universities. Society is shaped by the kind of education system that we have. The technology that we can even see in Zimbabwe at play is shaped by the education system. The environmental degradation and environmental upgrade, all these can be attributed to the education system in place. The legal practices system that we have are all coming from the education system. It means we have everything to do about the education system if anything has to change. And thus, as we interrogate this practice around the education system, I want to suggest what I'm calling a panacea curriculum prescription. And that should address three major issues, and that is the content, the context, and the pedagogy. In the content, I should hasten to mention these things. If Africa is to transform, then our education practice must shift from mere education to education for business. And we should do, in the face of the COVID-19, which has given us very important lessons. And I would also mention that we need to draw correct lessons from the COVID-19 experience if we are to make headway and allow posterity to hold us as people that have been so concerned about their future. In this case, I'm suggesting that we do what I'm going to call curriculum content distillation. Somebody referred to such things as being taught in schools, which are not so correct. Some of them that are outdated. And so the COVID-19 has stood out as a filter paper that should help us distill and filter out all irrelevant, archaic, and outdated content from our curriculum. Narrow it to the content that should be relevant to our time. Not only as Africa, but as globally, as a global village, we need to look at that. And I should submit that we need to redefine our education in the context of the COVID-19. And I submit this definition that education must be redefined as a process of creating sustainable means to identify, anticipate, and satisfy human needs. I repeat, education must be redefined as a process of creating sustainable means to identify, anticipate, and satisfy human needs. Thus, in the context of, there are some noises coming from the background. I don't know if I'm safe. All right. And so our approach to education in all disciplines should be done with a business mind. All sciences be practiced for business, all art for business. And whatsoever that it is, if we did that for business, develop that kind of mindset in even from early childhood up through to tertiary education, Africa will transform within the shortest possible time. And where do we begin from? In the other aspect of the context, today the whole world seems to be in agreement that human needs are the same, and hence we have the issues of globalization. We have now just moved from universal aims, the Millennium Development Goals, to the Sustainable Development Goals. These are all pointing to one fact that our needs are the same, but we need to come up with means of meeting these needs that are quite responsive, relevant, flexible, and at the same time, embracing the various contexts in which human beings exist. And so in terms of pedagogy, I want to submit that our practice of education, somebody mentions that we need to train teachers, but I think we need to move further from training teachers into educating teachers, because our education system has dealt and groomed teachers that are merely trained and are programmed like softwares. We want teachers that must be educated, teachers that should be creative, innovative, and flexible. And so I submit and recommend, in terms of our pedagogy, we emphasize so much in terms of inquiry methods, pragmatic approaches, and demonstration. But above all, we need to transform our classrooms from mere places of playing with toys to places where we can produce real goods with the students. And so if universities could move from merely practicing or experimenting into turning the classroom into some factories that would produce real products. And this is why in my initial stage, I feel very much excited to see what Great Zimbabwe is doing. And I should agree that sometimes why certain problems that we may think are problems, sanctions, are meant for us to think. And this is why lockdowns, to me, are a blessing in disguise, so that we are locked within ourselves, so that we are able to use our local wisdom. And this is what we can see from Zimbabwe. They are making use of what they have. They've ceased from looking outside. And that concentration itself is what is going to develop our potential in Africa. The reason we are failing to develop is because we shift our focus from the beauties within our continent to the beauties outside, deceived by what I would call a mirage. So we need to be locked within our territories so we can make do with what we have. Every country is richly endowed with natural resources adequate for their development. But the key and foundation to such is our education. We need to do quite a lot on our education system. In the Zambian context, I feel there is a lot that has to be done, especially with Higher Education Authority, other than just making prescriptions of courses. We need to see the relevance of those courses to the current situation, and 10, 15 years down the line, are those courses going to be of help? And I would suggest an integration of employability skills in all the courses and programs that universities are running. And if all programs were run for business purposes, I think we'd be making a step towards changing Africa. We should as well embrace this approach that GARA has brought to pull us together, build a pool of think tanks, researchers, and enjoy the academic freedom to pursue truth wherever it leads, whether it is across boundaries of ethnicism and whatever. We have to pursue truth. And this is one thing I cherish about our association. With these few submissions, I wish to raise my case, and once again, thanks to GARA, thanks to the panelists, and thanks to Prof. Asif for this initiative. I raise my case.
Thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Norman Kachamba from Zambia, for those really insightful information regarding the content, the context, and the pedagogy of the teaching, and especially the transformation of the classrooms. Okay, it's really highly appreciated in the context. Now we move on to another fellow researcher from Zambia, Dr. Shrine, who is at the Cavendish University in Zambia. So he would be our last speaker today, unless we can get Dr. Willard Musale back with us. Over to you, Dr. Shrine.
Thank you, Prof. Are you able to show my PowerPoint? Are you able to see?
No, we are not able to see, Shrine.
Okay, you could just flash what I submitted.
Just one second, I'll just pass it on to my technical team.
Okay.
Okay, are you able to see, Dr. Shrine?
Yes, Prof, I am.
Okay, fine. Please start.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. I want to thank you once again for the opportunity through GARA and also the participants and partners present in this forum. I need to indicate from the start that a lot of presentations that have been made have made allusion to the fact that we are yearning for quality education. And I really appreciate the presentations, especially also for Dr. Regina, the ambassador, where actually one of the problems that she highlighted as missing the education system in Africa to make it a little bit more qualitative is basically financing and funding. So my presentation this afternoon or evening basically will border on demonstration of how this lack of financing impacts on our need for quality education. Next slide, Prof. Next slide. Oh, thank you. So we are basically guided by the UNESCO goal number 4, which basically deals with the need for quality education to be met by the year 2030, where each and every child is supposed to have actually inclusive and equitable quality education, and that lifelong learning should be promoted, that each and everyone should have equal opportunities. So financing is supposed to be appropriated to the education in each annual budget to the tune of 20%. I think we all appreciate that this is a prescription by the UNESCO in order to ensure that this quality education we're talking about, which must actually integrate elements suggested by Professor Norman to do with the content, context, and pedagogy. If this is to be improved, and if we are to integrate all these aspects to get this quality education that we need, this requires financing. And I equally appreciate the presentation by Professor Gwamuri from Zimbabwe. I know that for them to reach that level, I know that there's substantial financing from whichever sectors in order to be able to get those prototypes and see the products that the education system can provide. So this is basically underpinned, of course, by the realization that education is a basis for human rights and socioeconomic development, and the pillar for building peace, equity, justice, fighting poverty, and creating business and job opportunities for all, as it aids in transforming people's minds or mindsets, values, skills, attitude, beliefs, and negative cultures. So this paper basically, although it will have a sector-wide implications, but I'll be biased a little bit to the public secondary school education system within the 6-year period that I've looked at as part of my analysis. So I'll look at the 2015 to 2020 in terms of the financing of the education system. And suffice to indicate that Zambia has over 80 million out of over 17 million of its population who are under 15 years, meaning this is a school age group that needs quality education if we are to integrate them in the mainstream production of the country. So just in summary, when you're talking about quality education from the Zambian perspective, as also enshrined in the Ministry of General Education blueprints, we're talking about the education system which recognizes the need for the inputs. And the inputs in this case, we are talking about basically having sufficient resources in terms of classrooms, having trained teachers, having sufficient and appropriate teaching learning materials and school supplies, infrastructure, be it internet, be it computers, and the relevant curriculum, and of course, the eligible pupils to be able to attend to respective grades at that level. And then we measure quality in terms of output by looking at basically the general performance of learners at every level. In this case, we may talk about maybe at the grade level, grade 7 level. We may also look at grade 9 level. We may also look at maybe grade 12 level and the GCE or the General Certificate of Education level. So when the performance or the learner outcomes or the pass rates are good at various levels of learning, then we are made to assume that the inputs in the education system are basically better. That is the yardstick or the baseline. So quality education, for quality education to be attained, there should be basically consistent, deliberate investments in the sector meant to enhance optimal resource utility, efficiency, effectiveness, and management of the system. Next slide, Prof. Thank you very much. So in order to actualize this, the government of the Republic of Zambia, of course, has made it a point that education, public education, should be centrally financed. And in each year, in each budget, annual budgets, there is a deliberate allocation to the education sector, which caters for infrastructural investments, as well as staff emoluments and recruitment. So it is these two fundamental elements where investments, be it in physical infrastructure or increasing classrooms, and also maybe teaching and learning facilities, which basically show us that there is a prioritization in terms of education from the part of central government. So if these finances are allocated to these aspects, and then investments are made correctly, then we can be sure that the education we're providing is not only qualitative, but also quantitative. We need to understand that our population, basically like in Zambia, is growing at the rate of about 3%. So it means that each year, there are children that are being born and need spaces in education. Next slide, Prof. Thank you. So when you look at now the financing of our education system from 2015 to 2020, you discover that we've been slowly sliding or going downwards, because in 2015, we're talking about having been around 20%, 20.2%, which is basically the prescribed standard by UNESCO. But come to 2016, we came down to 17.2. We came to 16.5 in 2017, and came to 16.1 in 2018. 2019, we came to 15.1. And now in 2020, which is last year, we are coming to 12%. So this trend shows you that basically we are going down. We are not improving. And this downward trend in terms of financing basically implies that the implications and the impact in the education system may be negative. If you check that, those are the actual figures for the period under review, which shows that, of course, what could have been allocated in the national budget, what should have been allocated to the education system, and the actual figures being allocated are not in tandem with the UNESCO standard as prescribed. So when you come now to the next slide, Prof. We come now to the next slide. Next slide again. Next slide, Prof. Thank you. So if you check just a randomized sample in Osaka province of the study which was done basically last year, you discover that facility resource ratios are abnormal. You also find Sorry, there's a bit of some noise in the background. Hello, Prof.
Yeah, it's okay now, Dr. Shrine.
Okay, thank you. There's something I think on my table. There's some obstruction on my table. Yeah, thank you very much. So the point I was emphasizing as a point of reference is that the impact of that downward trend in financing education is basically displayed in the randomized study that was carried out in 2020, which shows that the pupil to facility or resource ratios are basically abnormal. You can see that a desk which is supposed to be shared by 2 pupils, you find there are 3 children. The pupil urinal ratios are quite high. The pupil teacher ratios are quite high. The pupil computer ratios are quite high. So these indicate that basically the lack of financing in one or another is impacting on the need to provide the quality education that we are talking about. And when you look at basically the recruitment of teachers also just in the table below, you find that also there is about 133 teacher deficit just in Lusaka district. Now, if this is extrapolated to the entire country, of course, the implications are quite huge because those that may be in Zambia are aware that right now we have over 60,000 teachers that are basically roaming the street. They have been trained, of course, but they can't be swallowed in the teaching fraternity because there is no financing, there is no funding. Next slide, Prof. Thank you very much. So the children out of school, of course, also the numbers, if you check in 2015, the numbers were about 195,000, but come to 2018, the numbers went to about 800,000. So these are children out of school by various factors, of course. One of them is lack of school space and lack of sometimes not having enough teachers. And sometimes because of this number of classrooms or classes that are reduced, you discover that actually parents end up even sleeping in trenches when looking for these places. So this, in other words, is saying lack of financing, lack of funding to the tune which is prescribed by the global watchdog, the UNESCO, has in a fundamental way affected the provision of quality education in Zambia. Next slide, Prof. That should have shown the impact basically on the performance, but generally you find that for the period under review, 2015 to 2019, the grade 9 pass rates in Lusaka district is just around the 76%, while the grade 12 level pass rates is just oscillating between 60-61. So these are low pass rates if we are talking about the provision of quality education. So if the pass rates are very low, then it tells us that there's something fundamentally wrong in the provision of the education. It's either we're not doing fine in our teachers, maybe the training of our teachers, maybe availability of the learning facilities such as the laboratory facilities, availability of books, and even computers for children to be able to learn freely without any interruptions. Next slide, Prof. So the implications are that if we maintain the pace at which we are moving, because even the 2021 budget, I think we have gone now to about 11%. It simply means that we'll not be able to meet the UNESCO agenda of 2030. We'll not be able to meet also Zambia's vision of 2030, where we want to make this country a prosperous middle-class country using education as basically a pillar.
Okay, I'll call you back. Meeting, yes.
Our education. Sorry, Prof, there's an obstruction on my thing. Prof, yeah, thank you very much. So it simply means that there is need for prioritization of education by financing it to the standard that is required. But the two fundamental challenges that I have noticed in this study are that there's basically underfinancing and also under disbursement. So the amounts that are underfinanced do not amount to the amount which is basically disbursed to the various subsectors for them to spend in trying to improve the quality education. Last slide, Prof. So in my conclusion, I'm submitting that if we are to make an impact in the provision of quality education at public secondary school level, and even basically at all levels, because all levels are affected by this underfinancing, there is need for us to align, to get back to the prescribed standard of 20% by UNESCO. Secondly, there is need to prioritize education as a mainstay of socioeconomic and human development. We may also need to turn to other contemporary model of financing education, maybe by use of impact investment. I think Dr. Bisi made allusion to so many other players coming to finance education. Maybe that can help us. But more importantly, in Zambia, we need to win back the donor confidence, because what is happening right now is that basically the donors do no longer seem to be interested in financing our education system due to so many things, I think, that are going on there in the system, which they are not impressed with. But we may also turn back to investing in ICT to make provision of education efficient, effective by way of providing this service. Thank you very much, Prof. And thank you very much to the participants.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shrine, for those insightful information about Zambia's education system, and especially on sharing the statistics and data about the number of students out of the school and number of trained teachers who are out in the streets, as you mentioned, that is really very alarming indeed. Thank you very much. We'll come back to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The last presenter for today, if I get back to him with this net connection, is Professor Dr. Willard Branford Musale. Prof, are you able to hear me? Dr. Willard? You have to unmute, please. Dr. Willard? Earlier, twice we tried to get hold to you, but somehow we are not getting to you. But somehow I'm WhatsApping you and you are responding.
Are you getting me?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Willard.
All right.
Right. Can we share the screen, please, IT team?
Okay. You just assist me with my PowerPoint.
Yes. Just hold on. The IT team is going to share it just now.
Okay.
We can't see you.
Yes, we cannot see you also. Yeah.
Let him join with his video.
Hello?
Yes, Dr. Willard, you can switch on your video.
Hello?
We need to see you,
Are
sir.
you able to hear me?
We can hear you, but we want to see you. Your video, sir. Join with your video, sir.
Yes.
See on the, are you using a laptop, Dr. Willard?
Hello?
Are you using your laptop or handphone?
I have my laptop on.
Okay, you see on the bottom of the laptop where you have the mute sign, and beside there is a video option. So you just have to click that. I think it's close the video part of it.
The one which is showing start video.
Yes, it should be.
It also depends on the laptop, type of laptop he's using.
Yeah.
He's using.
Let me shift to the phone.
I hope it's not a Motorola phone again.
No, I was able to see all the activities from the beginning.
But what has happened?
Yes, both on my phone. I'm able to see you clearly.
But we can't see you.
We cannot see you exactly.
But you can't see me. But are you able to hear me then?
Yes, yes.
We can hear you, but we want to see you.
Okay. Can we make a deal? If you're able to hear me, I can go ahead.
Okay.
I'm able
Okay.
to see my PowerPoint now.
Yes, we can see your PowerPoints. All right, you can start, Dr. Willett.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and all the participants. This has been a very rich and educative session, more to me of a seminar. And possibly as a last speaker, most of the things have been covered. I'll be brief to the point. I'm trying to look at the historical and modern business opportunities in Africa, and possibly with a bit of slice of biblical perspective. On the next slide, a lot has been done in terms of research on the business opportunities. People have written 500 ideas, like in Uganda. One has written about 250 ideas in Nigeria. There's 101 ways of making money in Africa, 50 ways of using vacant land. And some have written 20 business ideas, etc. All these ideas, it may seem impossible until they are actually achieved. By historical, I'm talking of, if you go back, you have people like Abraham going into Egypt, and when he came out with a lot of wealth, a lot of servants, a lot of gold and silver. You have instances of Midianites who went in to trade, including part of slave trade. We have instances of people like Joseph who stood. Actually, the Bible verse says all countries came to Egypt to get grain, meaning there was agriculture that sustained the world that existed at that time. The next slide. The next slide, please.
There it is. Okay.
Now here's Africa. I'm showing it like in the area of natural resources. You can see that the Africa is spread all over with natural resources. And these natural resources should actually give enough and successful business opportunities. The next slide. The next slide. Arising from these natural resources, then it means that Africa is ripe and the time is now for us to do business. The next slide. Okay. You cannot succeed if you don't start. Most of these business researches, these business ideas that have been done and researched in many countries, they are more like food that has been cooked and it is served and it is not eaten. And the person who is watching the food will still remain hungry. For us, these opportunities that are existing, they may not need to be sought, they may not need to be created, but all it needs is to fill up the gap between what has been researched and the practical part of the business activity. Next slide. What are the challenges or hindrances to these business opportunities? Like others have already mentioned, there are issues of social and cultural barriers. There are many unexploited business ventures that needs a practical hand to go into it. You talk of raw materials. We have all the raw materials. And yet these raw materials, like Dr. Ali has mentioned, Why can't we have industries that can make these raw materials be processed to a point of sale? We have wood, for example, which is bought in Africa by China to go and make furniture, which again Africa is going to buy the same furniture which Africa gave to China as raw materials. So if there's change of policies, change of practices, these opportunities, instead of us looking for other places for industries, we can be the center. Since we have the raw material, finish up this raw material, work in the progress, finished goods, and we sell out the finished goods. Next slide. So we are saying that us as researchers in agriculture, livestock, and mining have these ideas that we can now turn into practice. As already mentioned by many other presenters, education curriculum should include business ideas at all levels of education, from primary, secondary school, including higher education. Technology and innovation cannot be separated if we are to succeed and grow like the great Zimbabwe University has shown. We need to turn these researchers in business opportunities into actual business proposals and practices. If these are not turned into practice, it's like a man who has found a beautiful woman whom he has admired, and he cannot marry that woman. Nothing will happen. And so ending up with a Bible quote, whatever we can find in Africa, let us do it with all our might. And ending with Nelson Mandela's quote, education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change our world and Africa. I rest my case. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Willard. At last we could hear you, but unfortunately today we could not see you. Okay, so that was indeed a great session of all the think tanks from the Africa. But definitely I'll come back to Prof. Dr. Christine for her final views. But before I do that, I would like to request a very eminent professor from Malaysia, Professor Dr. Oyu Hawk, a very seasoned researcher. And Prof. Dr. Oyu Hawk is also the Malaysian GARA chapter president. So with his immense 5 decades of educational experiences in globally, I would like to request Prof. Dr. Oyu Hawk for your final, summation of the today's information that we shared on this platform. Over to you, Professor.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairperson Dr. Christine, Chairperson Dr. Asif, and all the 10 presenters from Africa. I am actually caught like the Bermuda Triangle between these 3 groups of people. The chair, Dr. Christine, the other chair, Dr. Asif Karim, and the 10 experts from Africa. But fortunately, unlike the Bermuda Triangle, I am in the GARA reality triangle. And I think today's contribution by most of the speakers, although there are overlapping concerns, do have some directional commonality. So my second step forward is, and it is quite impossible for me at this time of the night, I'm still awake, and actually I've been following quite closely all of you, despite the technological breakdown and disturbances and missing faces and recurring faces, but it's good to see all of you. The point I am making is all of you from the African It's Time for Africa has one commonality. All of you are concerned, and I think many of you believe that education is the answer. But I would like to say many of you should be reconsidering re-education as the other word rather than education per se. Because we have all this time, like the earlier speakers say, we have been caught in the narrow-mindedness and the colonialistic handicap, all right, of colonial thinking, education base. And some of the African leaders of your country have had the opportunity to think about how to nationalize education policies. Like even in Malaysia, when we thought of nationalizing it, we say we take the national language, the Malay language as the national language, and then we base it on a common constitution. But today I'm not going to touch, and many of you, fortunately, actually did not touch on the political aspects of the equation because, and I'm not going to mention specific name, there was earlier on Dr. Christine who say, and with two other speakers, that we should move from colonialism to liberalization of education. I would take this as one step further. It is no longer a liberalization of education per se, but time for all of you and all of us, even in other places, to think about re-education. So a contribution and a summary to tonight's presentation by all of you, I find that if we approach It's Time for Africa, and 10 of you are from several parts of the different states in Africa, you would still be thinking about what I call country-bound orientation. But what I'm proposing is you should all be thinking, and I'm not suggesting that we are the unity leaders. No, I'm only suggesting that if you think of Africa as a continent, and therefore I would say you'll be thinking about beyond country-bound orientation to continent-driven vision. And therefore, all of you in GARA from the African side, all of you, the academicians, all of you in the industry, and whoever you bring into your respective country GARA participation would then be able to say, look, we have an agenda transforming re-education consensus. And the agenda, therefore, is about a common re-education agenda, not premised on Nigeria, neither is it premised on Zimbabwe, Zambia, Kenya, or Nigeria or Liberia, but on the continent of Africa, because that is a common bond among us all. And then earlier, as I was listening to the level, and this is the third point, we were listening to the level of education. And so far, throughout our GARA thing, as well as tonight, one of the most clear, the clearest education proponent of childhood education. And she has expounded and showed us in very precise diagrammatic form, okay? And I'm referring to Miss Kobalange Kawa, sorry, I mispronounced the name, Kawage, all right? She has that answer because we have to start our re-education of the African continent, re-education to coming up with a common platform, as the first two speakers had said, the need for early childhood education. The only thing that is missing in this transition to the repeat of education is we should be now having some of you think of the schooling part, the adolescence and the youth part, where schooling, all right, becomes the second level. And of course, all of us tonight here and previously have been in the tertiary education, the college and university level. So somewhere along the line, okay, in this continental-driven vision of African initiative among all our speakers, we should then look at 3 different levels. And depending on which states you are from and where your capacity and expertise are, each of you then could contribute to this level of development of re-education. And I'm talking about the commonality also raised by some of you, that the contents have become outdated, and therefore we need to improve on, example, the contents and the curriculum at this level 1, level 2, and level 3. And believe me, if we are able to cut across that, forget about what I say. Number 1, there will be no political consensus among us, because when we talk about democratization, liberalization, and all that, we will have our political idiosyncrasy, not idiotsyncrasy, okay? And this is where the difference will cloud our education objective, because we are academicians, we are educationists, and politics is not our forte, but human development. And that is where then you look into, for example, what we say, character building and lifelong skills. And then we go back to the fundamentals of education. So the 4th point I'm making is, if you all think as not a country-bound orientation, but a continent of Africa driven vision at these 3 levels, and somewhere along the line there is a meeting point, then we would be able to come up with an re-education model. And I actually have some ideas to share with you all together with Dr. Asif, and that is why I love GARA. Not to say GARA is the only answer, but 1 or 2 speakers say that, and indirectly, the need for this networking, an objective networking. And this is what GARA is trying to do, getting 30 different countries' expertise, and now concentrating on the African continent, because it's the largest continent, to be able then to move an agenda. And even earlier on, among one of the other speakers who represents the Dr. Regina Inam from Nigeria, under the so-called curriculum core need, and they use the word decolonization, renaissance. Now, this is the time for us, in our own way, all right? We have political differences, we have political ideologies, and actually we have administrative and management ideologies that are different, but we have a commonality. We have gone through the process of education, all right, of learning, unlearning, relearning. And this is where we now re-educate. What do you mean by introducing re-education? We forget what is available, go back to the fundamentals of 1, the philosophical approach to early childhood learning, the philosophical foundation of primary school and secondary schooling, and the philosophical foundation of tertiary college university education, even though each of us here already have our own vision and mission where we work. But that doesn't prevent us from coming together, all right, and be innovative and creative about coming out with a common humanistic philosophy of re-education for the 19 plus youth of Africa. So many of them, and they are not only African youth, worldwide young people are coming up, and they are pretty lost. I am sure they are very lost because they do not have among us, the older generation and the middle-aged generation, a set of values, life values, okay, including those life values of compassion, sacrifice that makes us and characterize our profiles. So in the new model, and the last point I'm making is in the new model of a continent Africa-driven vision for re-education, we should then look at, all right, not only the philosophical foundation, we should not only look at the profiling, nor the character of the participant, we must look at the content curriculum, and most importantly, link all to the infrastructure. And when I talk about infrastructure, Dr. Asif, this is where, like it or not, I am actually always making fun of it, because how perfect we try to be, then unfortunately, there will be some imperfections. And why are there imperfections? Such as disruptions to meeting phases and suddenly breakdown, is because it is meant for us human beings, given our intellectual capability and education, to then re-educate on how to amend for those imperfections, so that when you reach a certain age, you can say, I have my perfection despite the imperfections. With that, I conclude in a happy note, and I congratulate all the 10 participants who really make an effort to be with us today. And some of you I know as persons who have just completed your studies, but you have participated so well as professionals, and I'm willing and hopefully continue to share with Dr. Atif and GARA, so that we will make GARA a platform where, regardless of our nationality, ethnicity, religion, our objective and life goal is about re-education in the common interest of the young people throughout the world. Thank you very much, Dr. Asif, and all the speakers, and also for the chair, Dr. Christine, who has also managed this conference very well. And I look forward to future participation as well. Thank you. And from my side, good night.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
For your always insightful information. And also, I'm quite sorry to keep you awake. It's almost 10:15 p.m. in KL. So thank you very much, Prof, for always encouraging GARA and encouraging all the activities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Just before we go to Dr. Christine, just like to let everyone know that this particular platform today is being telecasted by Prerona Television of Canada, who is GARA's media partner. So we have with us the CEO of Prerona Television Canada, and also he is our GARA Fellow Chapter President of Canada. So I would just like to request him for his few words, how through his television channel and GARA as a platform, we can really do some great activities in Africa. Over to you, Mr. Edward, for your final words before I go to the chair to conclude today's session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On behalf of GARA Canada chapter and also Prerona TV,
And I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity. The Honorary Chief Advisor, Dr. Asif Mahbub Karim. Also, I'm very glad that all the distinguished professors and educators are here. Professor Dr. Christine, Professor Oscar, Dr. Ali, Manuel, Ms. Cor Bolake, Dr. BC, Ambassador Dr. Regina, Dr. Willard, Dr. Norman, Dr. Josephus, Dr. Green, Dr. Yu, and Dr. Mui. So thank you very much. Actually, from GARA Canada chapter, I would like to extend the support that we can actually work together, the African, the continent. We have been working here and providing a lot of training programs through Prerona televisions, corporate training programs. So we are looking for strategic collaboration. We have been connected with a lot of knowledge-based partners here, and also some technology-driven partners. We are also looking for doing a collaborative consultancy, research, training, and education, like publications, other opportunities. So there is actually a great potentials working here in Canada. We also registered another institute here. It's called Global Academy of Holistic Leadership and Coaching. So with that, with Prerona TV, I guess we can work together with all those the African countries that are actually a member of GARA. And I believe this GARA is a very great platform, and I'm very impressed with the presentations, for your value presentations. Especially, I'm also impressed by Dr. One of the presenters actually about some technology and then knowledge information. So thank you very much. And with that, I would like to thank everyone, and I'm looking forward for great collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edward in Canada. So we really look forward for our great collaboration that we already have. And of course, through Prerona TV and GARA as a platform, will definitely unite with the African continent in adding more values to our activities, and which will indeed be beneficial, I hope, to all our partners who are present here. So with no longer delay, I would like to request Professor Dr. Christine Phiri, the chair of the today's session, for her concluding remarks. And really, I'm very thankful to all the participants here, and I do look forward for a very good way forward from this platform. Over to you, Professor Dr. Christine Phiri.
Thank you very much, and recognizing everybody that is here and the sacrifice of time. The time difference, I've just heard that some people are supposed to be going to sleep, and that shows a lot of commitment that they've been up. But from the presentations that have been made, great insights have actually come out. And I know, like somebody has just said, it feels like it's been a workshop. And that is really, really good. One thing that has really come out is that we know where we are as Africa. We know what is wrong with us as Africans. And knowledge is not enough. I think it is about what are we going to do about it all. And thank you very much to Professor Yu for providing us with an agenda already, re-education, the re-education consensus. I think that is really, really crucial. What has been said shows that it's time for Africa. So much has been said about Africa. The perception of Africa is both, probably we could say about 80% quite negative and just about 20% which is positive. But in actual essence, it's very, very true that 90% of Africa, or probably even 100% of Africa, can feed the whole world. It has got the great minds. It has got, great innovations and the skills that are not even tapped. I think it's about us. It's not about getting ourselves educated. I think Professor has already concluded that it's the re-education, and the re-education, the rethinking, innovations and all that. We need to sit down and plan. Other continents are planning about what they are going to do with Africa. whilst we ourselves are planning about what we are going to do with the wealth outside of Africa. I think it is about us sitting down and planning as a continent as to what is it that we want out of Africa and what we need to do as Africa. Others have already indicated we have got the passion of what here in China is normally known as a concept known as keeping face. We want to be seen as very knowledgeable, you know, and all that. And then we miss the actual thing that we need to be. Who are we really, you know? Even if you go around Zambia, the others that are from Zambia will tell you that you find that our culture is looked down upon. Yes, there are certain elements of our culture which are not contributing to our development, but that is about how we sit down and look at what do we need to do. Dr. Crane has been able to indicate, I think through the statistics that I've given you, where there's a lack of will towards education, because we feel we are too schooled. We've got all the information and all we need to do is click the button here, fill in the blank space and all that. Well, the actual gap is missing. And I think this forum has really opened our minds and probably bring us to a position where we get refocused. Each and every presentation had common linkages. We are looking back to where we have come from. We are able to see what colonialism has done to us. But if you look at where the colonial times were, it's far, far back in the 50s, in the 60s. But this is now 2021, and we are still talking about what the implications or the effect of colonialism is. In fact, most of the people that lived during that period of time, I think very few of them are existing. They are probably in their hundreds or probably in the 80s or even in their 90s. But if you look at our generation, they still have the same mindset as those people. So I think the problem is with us now. What are we doing to our youths? What are we doing to our adolescents? What are we teaching them? You see, we are the same ones that are wanting them to look like the people in the West, far away from us, instead of looking at our environment, instead of looking at our industries. I think Zimbabwe has done good in the sense that it's been able to show what they have planned to do. You know, the innovation markets, the parks that they've come up with, that's part of what we need to do, but we need to plan. The re-education census, I think, is very, very important. It's a great agenda, and I think I would be very, very happy to be part and parcel of such great thinkers who can begin to look at Africa differently. We are very capable, and this is something that we have ourselves said. Research, I feel so sorry that sometimes when I visit universities and I look at their research agenda, part of it is about the staff writing journals, and you find programs in a particular year, one member of staff is supposed to showcase that they have at least done close to about 8 or 10 journals. So what? If those journals are going to be packed on the repositories, they are not going to translate into anything innovative. So what are they for? It's because we are trying to get what other people have done. And now they have reached a point where it's just about producing journals because they know they are already innovative and they're producing the vaccines that we are talking about. Whilst here we are looking at where is our vaccine coming from, you see. So it is not about how many journal papers, how much research has been done, but about how do we translate what this research which has been done into proposals, business proposals, which are going to help us develop our education system. The education, we have been told, education is very important, and there are no two ways about it, but it's about what type of education are we dealing with. So thank you so much. I think so much has been said. I don't want to say so much again and spoil the broth or the soup, but I think the great minds have done what needs to be done. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Christine Phiri. It's really very well framed out towards the information. Of course, as Prof. Wu have highlighted for the re-education, says indeed it's all has to be as re-innovation, re-creativity, you know, redesigning class, redesigning curriculum to meet up in the new norm, in the new era. And I'm quite sure that, as you have really said, that it's not about doing research and getting it published. So there's no use of it. So what? You publish. So we all must look forward in making our researches into an action-oriented research so that it is really converted into some real business plans, and that will indeed help the country to develop, help the continent to develop, and help the human being as a whole to really benefit from those researches, rather than they being piled up in some journals and kept in some libraries with no one to look into it. So just a part of our academic, what we say, career progression only. So it's indeed very nicely framed out. And I really thank once again to all the dear participants who are here today. And I would kindly request if you could send that you presented today to the, I'll share in the group the email ID. So, we can just come up with what we have sent you today, the program itinerary. So I can really compose them into a good, what we have presented, so that it's documented that what we have done for the phase 1. And I'm sure towards the half-year round, we would have a second round of this to see actually how in between these few months, if we could have really done something which will, translate it into some action-oriented activities. So I'm really grateful to all the participants here from Zambia, Zimbabwe, from Kenya, from UAE, from Canada, from Bangladesh, from Pakistan. So I'm really from Sri Lanka. So I'm really very grateful to all of you who have really made out your time to be here today. And indeed, it was a pleasure to have you all here. Thank you very much. And with that note, I'll sign off today. And it's a good night from here in Kuala Lumpur. And still, I wish you a very blessed day ahead in Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor, for your time and for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Norman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor.
Yes. Good night,
Thank you
everybody.
very much. Good night,
Good
everyone.
night. Good night.
Thank you, Dr. BC.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you, sir, from
Yes.
Bangladesh.
Yes, thank you,
It was
Mr. Hannan.
perfect night session. Okay,
Thank
sir.
you very much.
Zimbabwe. I wish to see that presentation from the Zimbabwe Prof.
Yeah, that one is very important, Dr. Norman.
We need to share that model.
Exactly.
Stay safe, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yes, good night, Prof.
Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Shariful Islam. Thank you, Mr. Rajal Kaur. All of you, thank you from Nigeria. Thank you,
Prof.
dear Ambassador, Dr. Regina. Thank you, all of you. I wish you a very a good, stay safe, and we wish to see sometime very soon again each other. Take care, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.